Hey everybody, Brett for AstartesGaming here. Today I wanted to take a look at the new Gamescom gameplay footage for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. They've released some more Siege gameplay. This time we're seeing the perspective of the defender rather than the attacker. And we're getting some more Battanians and some more Western Calric Empire. For those of you who haven't really been following along with Bannerlord, there are some like 30-minute gameplay videos floating around on, I don't know if they're on Tailworld's official YouTube channel, but they're on PC Gamers. They were done through PC Gamer, and one of them we see the Battanians, and the other I believe is the Western Calric Empire. So no new factions here, but we do see some new units and stuff from those factions, and obviously a whole new perspective on the Siege gameplay. So without saying too much more, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm just going to kind of give my thoughts and analysis as we go. And if I need to talk in depth about something, I'll pause or whatever. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. If you guys have not watched this yet, I highly recommend you do it. I mean, maybe watch it before this or after. I guess it doesn't really matter. But I'll have a link in the description if you want to watch just the unadulterated video without my commentary. Because obviously there's audio and stuff that you might want to hear as well. So here we go. Let's jump in. Right off the bat, I'm going to pause here because this is what I want to see from a siege battle. Look at this scenery. We've got all kinds of like destroyed, just like debris everywhere. You've got fires and smoke. You've got fortifications set up. You've got like battle lines. And it just looks really, really good. This sets the tone for what a siege battle should be. It's not a bunch of dumb AI troops lining up to, file up a ladder and die in succession. It's, an actual planned siege battle with several siege engines and all kinds of weaponry ready to batter down these walls. So right off the bat, this is the type of, setting I want to see when I'm either going into or preparing to defend a siege battle. And so we're going to see them set up the defending siege weapons right here. It works just like it does when you're on offense, so that's really cool. You can throw down your ballistas or scorpions or whatever you've got. It seems like basically wherever you want them, some slots can only take certain size weapons, it appears, while others can take slightly bigger ones or whatever you feel like putting there. And now we see a little bit more of a close-up on the Battanians, and we get to see a little bit better look at their armor. There's a whole lot of like rough chainmail, some scale armor, and a lot of leather. One little nitpick I have about the armor that we've seen is the specularity seems kind of off. The metal looks way too white, and you can see it on a lot of the scale armor. It looks like they're wearing like white scales because the metal is so like shiny and new. I'd like to see much darker, dingier metal on these, especially given the time period that I think they're trying to emulate. So anyways, we see the player character here trying desperately to keep the Western Calric Empire off the ladders and, delaying them slightly, but ultimately not able to stop them. One little thing I had, and I'm going to pause real quick right here, is we see, I'm going to move it forward just a bit, because I want a little bit better look at the Western Calric Empire's soldiers. You can see that they're carrying, I missed it again, but they're carrying like kite shields, which I found sort of interesting because my expectation for the description that we got of the Western Calric Empire and just the three factions associated with the Calric Empire was that they were going to be very like Roman-esque, maybe like the later Roman Empire after they split between West and East, and the West ultimately fell, and the East became what is known as like the Byzantine Empire. Although that was a name given to them, I believe they had always identified as Romans. But I was expecting shields more in line with that, and equipment more in line with that. And the kite shields don't really fit that. I was expecting to see like oval shields, maybe some scutums, or just like a round shield. But what we see here is a bit obviously different from that, and so I'm not sure what they're going for here exactly. And we actually see some other equipment later on which to me looks like it's from an entirely different time period. And you guys can correct me when we get there, because I may be a little bit off on this, but the equipment just looks like it's from a completely different time period than at least I thought they were trying to emulate. Another little nitpick I have is the animation there with that axe swinging. The arm just looks a little bit odd, sort of like a weird like hook arm swing. But those are all things that are very easily fixed and really not a big deal. I mean, obviously the angle the arm is swinging is not critical to the gameplay, and really just something superficial that I wanted to point out. And here we see a very near miss with a flaming, I'm not sure what that was, but some sort of flaming projectile that almost cleared out a whole bunch of troops. And I'm going to pause here because this is another important point. We see the siege engine here, this battering ram, is slowly being destroyed by the defenders. 2/3 of the roof has been like knocked out, so the men running the engine are very exposed. Something that we haven't seen yet, but I'm going to assume is in there based on what we see here, is the ability to basically handicap these engines and turn them into basically just roadblocks. They do have wheels, obviously, that let them roll. And so I imagine if you can target those wheels with some of the heavier weaponry, such as the Scorpion that's like just to the right of the player character, you can kind of see the little arm of it there. I'm thinking that if you target the wheels with a weapon like that, you can eventually handicap these engines and prevent them from getting to your walls and doing damage. We don't actually see any of that in either video, I believe, but it's something that I really hope is in the game, and I'm going to assume, based on the destruction of these engines that we see, I imagine they just want to show all the different like attack vectors that you have, and so if they had one of these engines, you know, destroyed out in the middle of the battlefield, you wouldn't get to see all the different ways that the attackers and defenders can interact. So let's continue on. The player character here is trying desperately to shoot the guys out from this thing, but obviously not going to succeed. Personally, I would have jumped on that Scorpion and started firing much heavier ammunition at it, but he just lets the AI kind of take care of it, and I don't know what the AI was firing at, but it clearly wasn't that. And so let's see, he's going to run across here. We see a little bit of onager action right there. And okay, here's some siege tower stuff. Or not. It looks like he's going back to the murder holes. One thing I really like about this is that they work just like throwing weapons, so you can actually aim them, target them. They do a little bit of what looks like AoE damage there. The rock almost appears to like explode. On this one, it sort of bounces, and it doesn't look like it does nearly as much damage, or any damage, but here you'll see another one that hits pretty well and knocks out quite a few guys. And then off he runs. We'll take another look at that score screen at the end, because there is some interesting information on there, but they show it again at the end, so we'll talk about it then. Here we get another look at the scale armor, which to me it just looks white. It's way too light, it's way too shiny. You can see that they're going for a very like worn, beat up look on this metal, because there's all kinds of like dirt and scratches and scuffs on it. So I'd just like to see the metal a lot darker. Even if it's just as shiny, I'd just like to see it darker, because to me right now it looks like they're wearing like white, I don't know, like ivory helmets almost. So again, just a little nitpick there. And then we see the command system in action. He's just going to tell his troops to head over that way and protect the catapult or onager, whatever that is. Or apparently they're following him. I don't think we see those guys again. But here we do get a better look at... Oh, apparently they are following him. Okay. Here we get a better look at the Western Calratic Empire. And also a little bit better look at that scale armor, which, again, to me it just looks like it's like white armor. Which, I don't know. It's just... I think it should be darker. Anywho, as soon as the player works his way in there, we'll see a little bit more of that awkward axe swinging. I think it's a combination of both the arm the way the arm moves and the way the hand is sort of wrapped around the axe, they both look just a little bit off. Again, not anything game-breaking at all. And then the other sort of question I had here is, you'll see a couple guys wearing what look like gambesons, and I don't know that, at least in the period I thought they were going for, that gambesons were a thing. I mean, they certainly could have been, but like those two right there are wearing like these sort of like diamond patterned padded shirts, and to me that looks like almost Middle Ages type equipment. I don't think you saw a whole lot of stuff like that during like the later years of the Roman Empire, but I could be totally wrong there. This is definitely not my forte as far as time periods in history go. Some of the other equipment certainly fits, but to me those just don't look quite right. And overall, the whole aesthetic for this faction is decidedly less Roman than I was expecting. I know they weren't going to go all out with just like, you know, full Roman gear, especially since they have 3 of these factions. They all need to feel like individual factions. They can't just be like 3 different colored Roman factions. But still, they weren't exactly, or they aren't exactly what I was expecting. Some of the heavier armor to me is more like what I was looking at. If you look toward the back, there's some guys in like chainmail with helmets that look sort of like Coolest helmets or Monteforno helmets, which you know, you might see during like Caesar's campaigns. But anywho, yeah, just a few of the different pieces of equipment to me look a little bit out of place. But again, that's just, it could just be my my lack of expertise for this time period. So let me know what you guys think about that, and what you were expecting of the Western Calratic Empire versus what you see here. Same with the Battanians. For me, the Battanians are pretty spot on though. This is about what I was expecting. Again, I don't like how shiny some of their armor looks, but the rough chainmail and scale and leather definitely fits what I was expecting them to be. So we see a whole lot of carnage here, and one thing I have to say is the carnage looks a lot better in Bannerlord, certainly. In Warband, when you were fighting like this, you would see a whole lot of axes and swords hitting invisible clipping planes on shields and on the walls and stuff. And here, everything looks like it's hitting, whether it's hitting a shield or it's hitting a person or their helmet or part of the wall. Everything's making contact. There's no clipping planes that are catching or anything awkward like that. So that's really good to see. Obviously, the improved engine really helped there. The enemy's going to flee here, and the player's going to catch like one of them, and then I think miss all his other shots. Somebody on the walls snipes one of those guys, and then the player shoots like 4 more arrows over their head. But anyways, let's just survey the battlefield right here. Look at this carnage. You've got all kinds of busted up fortifications, like wagons that are broken and on fire. You've got corpses all over. This is what a battlefield should look like when the battle's over. Obviously, in Warband, they tried, but it didn't quite have this feel to it. But this is like, just the atmosphere alone in these siege battles is so much better than in Warband. Obviously, all the new gameplay mechanics are miles and miles better too, but the atmosphere alone is just such a huge improvement. So let's continue on, and when the battle's over, we'll take a look at the score screen, because there is a couple interesting tidbits about the factions in there that are, you know, worth discussing briefly. So there we see successful siege defense. I really like the design of that fort. I like how it's set into the mountains, sort of. Okay, so here we go. We see the attacker army. So this is the Western Calratic Empire, and we see that they have Imperial Bowmen, Cataphracts, and also I think it's important to note here that they're called Imperial. So if we are to read way too much into this, like we typically do when we're analyzing stuff for a game that's not out yet, we can assume that these units are going to be available for all Calratic Empire factions, because it's Imperial. It's not specifying which one, it's just saying Imperial, so I'm going to assume that we're going to see the same units for all 3 factions, which is something that disappoints me slightly. Hopefully each faction at least has their own like unique take on these units. They'll look slightly different or something, but based on this, it seems like they're all going to have the same stuff. Anyways, we have bowmen, cataphracts, heavy horsemen, horse archers, just regular horsemen, infantrymen, legionnaires, light infantrymen, sergeant crossbowmen, skirmishers, trained infantrymen, and veteran infantrymen. So we see several different levels of the infantrymen there. That's cool. Obviously, you'll have different tiers, and then we see a lot of different ranged units. So we have bowmen, we have crossbowmen, and we have skirmishers. So the skirmishers, I'm going to assume, are going to have maybe like javelins or something similar. It's not easy to see the little picture there, so I don't know exactly what they're armed with, but I imagine if they had bows or crossbows, they would be called, bowmen or crossbowmen. So I'm going to assume, based on skirmisher, they've got maybe some sort of throwing weapon, perhaps a sling type weapon. But anyways, we have at least 3 distinct range units there, and then we also have the horse archers and several different mounted troops. So we've got horsemen, heavy horsemen, and cataphracts. I imagine those are probably all in the same tier, so the horsemen become heavy horsemen, who become cataphracts. I think that would make sense. But yeah, so we see a whole lot of unit variety here, more so than in Warband. It looks like rather than just having a melee branch on the tree and a ranged branch on the tree, there's going to be several branches to kind of diversify. So maybe you have, your crossbowmen defending the fort, and your archers are, out on the battlefield because they're a little bit more mobile or whatever. Anywho, let's take a quick look at the battalions. So the battalions, we see archers, clansmen, footmen, heavy infantrymen, horsemen. So battalions do indeed have cavalry. That's something we weren't sure about yet, but we kind of assumed. Longbowmen, scouts, trained infantrymen, yeomen, longbowmen, and then the commander there. So, I mean, obviously longbowmen, the battalions based heavily on the Celtic, English, and Welsh, so we expected that, and we sort of knew that based on the description of them. But it's cool to see, and so obviously with these factions you're going to sort of differentiate them very differently. But overall, I think there's a lot of cool information in this video. You really got to dig for it because it's so short, but it's nice to see some of this stuff. I'd really like to see some more videos on the other factions because we've really only gotten these 2 so far. And, I'd love to have them further and further fleshed out, but I'd still like to have some information on the other ones too. But anyways, I don't want to go on with this for too much longer, so I'm going to leave it right here. Let me know what you guys think about the video overall, about the combat. Maybe let me know what you think about the factions and what we've seen from them now that we have a little bit more on them. And then, what else? Let me know what your thoughts are on some of the little nitpicks I had, whether you agree with me or disagree. And then I think that's it. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a great time checking out some Bannerlord with you guys. I'll have a link again for the video in the description. And I'll see you guys back here for the next one.